I'm going to call to order the JCIDA special meeting on June or July 19th to consider the YMCA amended lease agreement. If we could stand for the pledge, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd just like to call out welcome Denise to our meeting here as well.
How you doing?
So, Dave, do we want to go to executive session or talk about some of the changes initially and then?
Yeah, so Tim, Justin, I guess, do you want to start out with kind of an overview? If we need to go to executive session, discuss some of the terms, kind of, you want to start off giving us an overview, and then if we need to executive session, we go into a motion, discuss some things further without Denise. If the board has any questions.
Yeah, Tim, do you want to give a quick recap of where we are and any of the top level issues that tackled in the last few days? If there's any particular business terms or issues that the board wants to get into in terms of specifics, we can go into executive, but I think we're basically there.
I think so.
Most of it in terms of events and some of the more technical legal issues got tackled over the weekend. I'll let Tim dip in if he can hear and participate.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. And I do think we're very, very close now, if not already there. The summary is that we took the existing lease between the IDA and the Y and simply amended and restated it for a couple of purposes. One, given the significant construction that the Y is going to complete on the site, the lease needed some, I think, some additional provisions for clearly with respect to indemnification and non-recourse against the IDA. In addition, we incorporate some because the Y contemplates financing and construction with a institutional lender right now. We believe it's be, but not certain yet. We have not yet seen a formal commitment. So the substance of the lease is much the same as existed in our current ground lease, but it's really just been beefed up to better reflect the scope of the transaction between the two parties, and it's a much more, I think, market customary ground lease type of project. The one issue that has come up that has not been entirely resolved, and it's more of a wide concern than the IDA's concern, is that M&T's counsel had requested some revisions to the leasehold mortgage sections of the ground lease that we had offered. And we're going to be able to work through those one way or the other, whether it's a tweak even this morning with M&T's counsel, or it's a simple amendment or actually a separate document as the Y's financing is firmed up. And it's not an issue that isn't always negotiated in this type of transaction in IDA and in a third-party tenant and an institutional lender. So it's nothing to be concerned of. I think Justin and I know both the Y attorney and the M&T attorney well, and these things are they're always negotiated. The construction lender in this case, presumably M&T, wants as much protection as possible in that unlikely scenario of a wide default on the construction financing. And the IDA, of course, can only give so much in terms of lender protections in that instance. So I'm happy with the lease. I'm pleased with the negotiation. I think it's a much improved lease to what we had in place. And the IDA, we have full indemnification from the Y in connection with the breach of the lease, construction of the project, injuries incurred in construction, so it's a modern day good ground lease that protects the IDA the way it should be. Bob Sly is the attorney for the city of Watertown. He had the mayor sign the deed documents last night at city council, so we will have those in our hand today, and that obviously gives us title to the small piece of land that we had to get from the city for the wide constructed pool. So that piece is in place, and I'll follow up with Bob as soon as our call is done here, just to make sure, we have those documents in hand. And they may get reported tomorrow or the next day, as long as we have the signed deed. I'm happy, sharing the lease with the Y. One open question I think that was asked last night, and forgive me, I did not reply, was, is the Y's insurance in place? And I guess I assume that we already had some Y insurance in place because of the existing ground lease. It did omit or did not include the existing lease, that is, coverage for builder's risk, which should be in place
That isn't.
given any construction on our property. So I will confirm that with the wise attorney again after this call, to make sure that insurance that is in place now under the existing lease is sufficient for, the escalation of the construction and the more immediate construction that's upon us here within hours or days.
Yeah,
Tim,
that is in place. Tim.
Other than that,
yeah, Tim, that is,
that is in place.
it is in
Yes.
place and the IDA has a copy of it.
Yeah, we have a copy. I thought I may have sent it to you, but if not, we'll get it. We'll send it right over to you.
And that includes not only the property and general liability, but an actual builder's risk policy.
Yes.
And that was in response to Rob's email question. Rob probably also sent a question about something.
Yeah.
ISO there.
Did you see Rob Aliasso's question reply last night to my email about the ISO? I didn't quite understand what the question, but.
I'm sorry, guys, I'm on the road. Could you just repeat that question? I've been trying to address.
I'm looking it up. But Rob Aliasso,
Yeah, for additional insured status, should we specify what ISO form and revise we desire?
that's what they deal with. He's an engineering company. I'm not sure that
Apparently something he has.
applies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could just take a peek at the certificate, after our call, but absolutely, the IDA should be listed as additional insured, on all of the policies, the general liability, really the building risk right now that's in place, but any, personal property coverage that the IDA or that, the Y has in place for the project.
Yep, and it is.
Yeah, and it's in place. It's in place for the 5 million. Yeah.
Tim,
Okay.
one question I have, reading through the terms of the lease, going down the road, even upon completion of the construction phase, but over a 30-year period, liability-wise, will we not be included and halfway expect to be included in any kind of an injury lawsuit as
You'll always be named as additional
Right,
insured on our
right.
insurance, always,
well,
until it
but still
passes.
additionally insured, but still in the event of a liable lawsuit, will we be named as a defendant in any of those actions?
Neighbors
As a-
never has. We've been leasing, the city never has. We've been leasing from the city for 20 years. Neighbors never has. We've been leasing from neighbors for as long as I think we've existed.
Generally, lawyers like to bring everybody to the table,
Right.
but I think in the process, you get dropped out.
No, we've never had any of places where we've been leasing end up paying on any kind of suit. It's always been our insurance.
Typically, personal injuries lawsuits the attorneys will do a type, they'll name everybody. But the lease does contain absolute indemnities from the YMCA for any liability that's backed up by insurance with the IDA listed as additional insureds. Technically, what would happen if the IDA is named in a lawsuit for for liability for a defect or condition or operations. The Wise insurance carrier will and they will take up the defense of the IDA. The proceeds of insurance providing any compensation for liability, and to the extent that there's casualty that or a liability that exceeds insurance, the YMCA would be on the hook for any excess coverage.
Thank you, that clears that up for me.
So in terms of the agreement being 30 years, as Ed kind of alluded to, the agency is now responsible for anything basically going forward. Like, 30 years from now, the roof probably may need replacing or whatever situation may come up. But we're done as of the agreement.
But say in the event of a capital improvement, as the leaseor, do we still have to authorize or sign off or have permission granted for you to do that capital improvement?
We have always done leasehold improvements to maintain the facilities. I mean, it would be expected that we would maintain the facility.
In the agreement, it says that we're to review the plans, but I don't think we have to authorize.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the line in the sand as far as any. In other words, Building and Grounds Committee isn't going to have to be involved with anything coming forward that you want to make improvements to.
No. Yeah. And I would just say this, so I would just comment that this process has been good, back and forth, both sets of attorneys working on this. I think the Y went into this expecting to be fully responsible. If it could be a purchase, it would be a purchase and you wouldn't even be here.
Right.
So, but it can't be because of the DOD grant. So, we fully expected this. We will take responsibility from the building, from the signing.
Do you have an idea when the tax credit financing decision will be made?
We really, if anybody's worked with New Market tax credits, it's always a question. I mean, they have said they're going to make announcements in the fall. We have 2 CDs that have included us, but whether they get allocation or not, when the the Treasury will announce it when the announcement, and then the process for that, so all of that, I wish I could say,
So
but I
there's no
certainly.
definitive announcement date.
There's no definitive announcement date, unless, Justin, something I don't, that it's kind of the Treasury announces it, they say the fall, and that can mean September or November or August.
And was there not some language in here referencing potential?
The only predictable date that we typically look at is the closeout of the federal fiscal year. So September is typically a date where they'll have a wave of announcements on federal programs, including EDA and others. So we'll see Treasury and those other organizations like the EDA start making waves of announcements after Memorial or after Labor Day. So hopefully good news at that point.
And that's always been a hope, right? So, but we can't depend on it. So we have to make sure we have all the other ducks in a row.
And there is language in here, should you incur an opportunity for a grant opportunity outside of the tax credit, that down the road in a year or whatever, that can be applied back toward the 500,000.
Correct.
So the door is open for future opportunities outside of the tax credits, right?
But not for private donations.
Right.
Like somebody's giving us $5 for
Right.
going to capital campaign, or that's not included, but.
So is there any
And
other
trust me, I'll
discussion?
keep looking. I will continue to keep
I'm
trying.
sure.
There's a New York State grant right now that potentially has opportunity that we've already talked to Steve Hunt. And Steve believes that the Y project is a great fit for it, but whether we move forward, we will continue to seek any opportunity to help offset these costs.
Is there any further discussion regarding that rental payment language? Anybody has any kind of concern about? In terms of the pool, so this is incorporating that property from the pool that's getting involved in that agreement. Anything on that side of it, Dave?
Nope, the city's, Sim said the city signed that, so that's all ready to be executed. It's just holding an escrow right now.
Okay.
So we end this, we'll be owning that property and we can execute for the whole project.
And as far as the parking lot, there's no other,
Parking lot
Property.
city owned and we'll leave it there.
okay.
Yeah, before we had the agreement with the city, which is expired for the parking, because Stream wanted that parking dedicated, and of course, we're paying the city, that Stream's, each year for the city to maintain, at least that lot, and maintain it. So that need has gone away, and it'll be public parking now.
And any issues with the downstairs landlords, I guess, or is it Washington Street?
No,
Jester and
Yeah, and that agreement will pass directly out. We'll become responsible for the tenants of that agreement.
All right. Do we need to do an executive session?
I don't
I
think so.
don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay. So we need a motion?
Yep.
To move this to accept it or move it to the board?
No, we're at a board, we're to accept it now,
Okay,
and I'll move that.
I'll second it.
all in favor? We need a
Does that
roll
be
call or
Why not?
Yeah,
roll call vote?
A little handy dandy paper right here. Okay. Dave,
yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rob is absent, John,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bill's absent, Lisa.
Yes.
Very good, motion carried. Anything else for the board?
Nope. Just work with Justin and Tim here and getting this thing executed this time. So
Hopefully we get this kicked off, Denise, and things will start rolling.
I brought my pen.
We got tools in the ground, ready to go.
Yeah, they are literally ready to
It
go.
certainly is a great project. It'll be
Yeah, it's
very
gonna be
beneficial for the
amazing.
community.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
We've been, what, 3 years? 4
Wow,
years?
and hurdle after hurdle after hurdle, and I can't thank you guys enough. I can't
Right.
thank the idea enough for helping us overcome those hurdles as we've hit them.
I
And
thought her feet were glued to the floor for a while.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so us too.
Okay, well, if nothing else for the board, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Justin, Tim,
Aye.
should I talk to you separately, Colin? I mean, I know Tim's gonna, as far as moving ahead, we sign this and we're executed, or what do we need to do?